Hello and welcome to Baldur's Gate 3. This highly anticipated CRPG developed by Larian Studios is finally here. After a long period of public testing in early access, the game is now fully released in all its glory, and it looks spectacular. I've never played any of the Baldur's Gate games before, but I did play Divinity Original Sin, at least the first one, and thoroughly enjoyed it. As many of you know, I've also played other CRPGs like Fallout 1 and 2, Wasteland 1 and 2, the Expeditions series of games, so that's Expeditions, Vikings, and Rome, and of course, Pillars of Eternity 1 and 2. The first game of which I have an ongoing campaign on the channel, playing as a cipher, so go ahead and check that out if you're interested. But in any event, I'm very keen to jump into Baldur's Gate 3 and give it a whirl. So strap in, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and join me on my epic adventure. Let's get stuck in here with a new game. So first things first, we get to choose our difficulty setting. Three options before us. We have Explorer, a narrative experience placing story before combat. We've got a balanced adventure full of challenging choices, and Tactician, a tough campaign emphasizing strategic combat. Ordinarily, I would just go with the hardest difficulty and leave it at that. But because I've not played a Larian Studios game since Divinity Original Sin 1, so I haven't played Divinity Original Sin 2, and I've not played any games in the Baldur's Gate franchise at all, so I don't know if when they're setting these difficulty settings, if their intention is that Tactician is aimed at people who are both familiar with CRPGs and familiar with Baldur's Gate, and perhaps even familiar with the third entry, Baldur's Gate 3, or if Tactician is just for people who are familiar with CRPGs generally. So I don't know if I should go for that one at the outset, because I'm not sure if that's pitched at someone who's got CRPG experience but not necessarily Baldur's Gate experience, or not necessarily experience with Larian's most recent games like Divinity Original Sin. Whereas I think Balanced probably is pitched at people who are maybe familiar with video games generally, but not necessarily familiar with CRPGs. Maybe that's more appropriate, or maybe Balanced is intended for people who are familiar with CRPGs, but maybe not familiar with Baldur's Gate itself. So I'm not overly sure how the difficulty changes between each of these two settings. It doesn't really tell you much. I presume Tactician involves tougher enemies or more enemies or something like that, but it doesn't really say. Explorer, I'm guessing, is for people who are, well, new to CRPGs completely, I would suspect, and perhaps even new to video games more generally. But again, I can't really say with certainty. But I think for our first playthrough, we'll go with Balanced here. If it turns out to be a little too easy, we can always bump it up to Tactician later on. But yeah, let's go with that. Alright, so that brings us to character creation. That was a cool little cutscene. It's nice to see some cutscenes in games to introduce you to the world and everything. Always appreciated. I don't think too many games make cutscenes anymore, really, so it was a nice surprise. Pretty gruesome start, though, watching someone else in one of those pods get that little parasite thing, you know, put in behind their eye, and then it looks like the same thing happened to us. I'm assuming that parasite doesn't immediately take you over. It's I'm guessing not like the Goa'uld from Stargate, where it just takes over your body and uses you as a host. At least not initially, because that would make a pretty tough start to the game, where you're not really in control of yourself, I guess. But yeah, nonetheless interesting. In fact, the architecture of that alien structure we were in reminded me a little bit of the Wraith from Stargate Atlantis as well. I'm not sure if any inspiration was drawn from either Stargate TV shows, but nonetheless, pretty cool start, and it certainly reminded me of Stargate. But anyway, alright, so we now get to create our character, and we can either go with a custom character here, or we can pick one of these origin characters. Now, my understanding is if you do not play as the origin characters yourself, then they will be available to you as companions to use in your party. So I think I'd probably prefer to have the origin characters as companions rather than actually play as one of them. But we'll go through them in a little bit and watch their little introduction story and everything. But I thought the first place to start that might be good would be with the races, because there's a few that I'm not familiar with. You know, there's the standard elf, human, dwarf, even gnome, you know, from other kind of fantasy genres. Gnome I'm only familiar with from like World of Warcraft, to be honest. But you got halflings, which are like hobbit equivalents, and then humans, elves, dwarves, they're all pretty standard. But let's go through each race and talk a little bit about them, see what their capabilities are. It looks like the races don't result in any change to your base attributes here: strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. For those of you who've played Pillars of Eternity or are watching my campaign with me, you'll note that these are the same, except for the notable absence of perception. Pillars of Eternity has a perception stat, whereas Baldur's Gate doesn't seem to, but, you know, different strokes for different folks. But anyway, let's have a read. So we've got elves here with ethereal countenances and long lifespans. Elves are at home with nature's power, flourishing in light and dark alike. So they have a base racial speed of 9 meters per turn. They have elven weapon training, which gives them proficiency with the longsword, shortbow, and longbow. They have dark vision, which means they can see in the dark up to 12 meters. And they have Fey ancestry, which gives them advantage on saving throws against being charmed, and magic can't put you to sleep. So a saving throw basically determines whether a target resists a spell or condition. So when someone casts a spell on you, you will make what's called a saving throw, which is a dice roll to determine whether or not the spell hits you, or misses you, or you resist it, or it's a critical hit, or what have you. An advantage basically means that when you're making a saving throw dice roll against the charmed spell, or the charmed category of spells, I guess, you will, instead of rolling 1 die, you'll roll 2 dice, and you'll use the higher value of either of them. So, which obviously that gives you a better chance of success. So that's quite useful. So that's elves. They've got 2 sub-races for the elves here. We've got the High Elf, heirs of the mystical Feywild. The High Elves value magic in all its forms, and even those who do not study spellcraft can manipulate the weave. They get the High Elf cantrip, which is a firebolt, which is an evocation cantrip, 1 to 10 damage approximately, fire damage that is, and you hurl a mote of fire, based on the intelligence stat, and has an 18-meter range. Then we've got the Wood Elves, who look a little bit different to the High Elves, and these elves spend their reclusive lives in Faerun's forests. Decades of training in archery and camouflage are enhanced by an otherworldly swiftness. Now, I've never played any of the Baldur's Gate games, and like I said, the only Larian Studio game I've played is Divinity Original Sin 1, not the second one. but I've not played any of the Baldur's Gate games, so I'm not familiar with any of the lore or the terminology. I don't know if Faerun is a name for the entire planet, like Earth or Nirn from the Elder Scrolls, or if it's a reference to a continent or to a country or to a particular part of a country. I assume it's a reference to either a continent or the entire planet. I could be wrong though. But yeah, decades of training in archery and camouflage are enhanced by an otherworldly swiftness, so they get the sub-race feature of increasing their movement speed by 1.5 meters per turn, so they can go 10.5 meters a turn instead of the base 9, which is quite good. If you're a melee character, you can get into the action a bit quicker, or even if you're a ranged character, you can get into position a lot faster, so not too bad, that one. Then we have Tieflings, which is new to me. I've not heard of this type of race in any game before. Tieflings are descended from devils of the 9 hells, and they face constant suspicion in Faerun. Thankfully, their arcane abilities make them natural survivors. So they have the same base movement speed as elves. They've also got dark vision, and they have what's called hellish resistance, which gives them resistance to fire damage. In other words, they only take half damage from fire. So that's quite good. Like I said, all the stats are the same. It looks like the health points are the same as well. Their cantrip is different. They get... that must be based on the... yeah, that must be based on the sub-race there. So because we've got the fighter class selected, I think some of these action abilities here, second win, I think that's a fighter ability, because it's the same on all the races here. And some of the proficiencies are also impacted by your class. But for the Tieflings, we have 3 sub-races. We've got the Asmodeus Tiefling, bound to Nessus, the deepest layer of the Hells. These Tieflings inherited the ability to wield fire and darkness from the Archdevil Asmodeus' infernal bloodline. So they get, yeah, the produce flame conjuration cantrip. A flame in your hand sheds a light in a 9-meter radius and deals 1 to 8 fire damage when thrown. And that can be used, I think, once every long rest, and it's based on your charisma stat. Then we have the Mephistopheles Tiefling. Descended from the Archdevil Mephistopheles, these Tieflings are gifted with a particular affinity for arcane magic. They get the Mage Hand Conjuration cantrip, create a spectral hand that can manipulate and interact with objects. It lasts 10 turns, I think, when you cast it. And it doesn't look like... I don't know if that can only be used once per rest or not. Doesn't say, so I presume you just can use it as you please, I guess? I don't know. Maybe you have to prepare it or something, but based on the charisma stat, 18-meter range. Then we have the Zariel Tiefling. Tieflings from Zariel's bloodline are empowered with martial strength and can channel searing flame to punish their enemies. Oh, I also forgot to mention, we've got body types, and we'll edit our appearance in a little bit here, but you can see you've got the male body type here, you've got the female body type, you've got a large female body type, and then you've got a large male body type. They're all relatively muscly, but 3 and 4 are more muscly than 1 and 2, and also taller. But that's the Zariel Tiefling. Then we have the Drow, which is also a new race to me. They look a little bit to me like the Dunmer of the Elder Scrolls, the Dark Elves, and they seem to have elvish ears, so I presume they're, have a common ancestor with the elves or are somehow related. But the Drow, driven to the Underdark, most Drow have adopted a ruthless pragmatism. While the Lothsworn delight in the goddess' evil tenets, the Seldarine reject her attempt to overthrow the leader of the Elven Pantheon. Same base racial speed as elves, 9 meters per turn. They've got Drow weapon training though, which gives them proficiency with the rapier, short sword, and hand crossbow. Speaking of which, I should mention, unlike Pillars of Eternity, there is no gunpowder in Baldur's Gate, as far as I can tell. So you won't get pistols, rifles, blunderbusses, arquebuses, anything like that. It looks like it's just the typical high medieval fantasy weapons, crossbows, war bows, long bows, short bows, and various types of swords, axes, maces, flails, all that sort of stuff. Spears, pikes, halberds, etc. Doesn't look like any gunpowder, which is fine. Pillars of Eternity has me sorted on that front. If you want to see me run around as a piratical cipher using a pistol, then go check out my Pillars of Eternity playthrough. But this is the Drow. There's two sub-races. I should mention as well, they've got superior dark vision, so they've actually got double the dark vision that elves and tieflings have. They can see in the dark up to 24 meters. But they also have Fey ancestry, which is the same as what the elves have, so that does suggest a common ancestor there. Two sub-races for the Drow. They've got the Lolthsworn Drow. Raised by Lolth's cult in the city of Menzoberranzan, these Drow embody the virtues of their corrupt and merciless goddess. Lolth marks her followers with bright red eyes, so those in the Underdark will learn to fear them on sight. And the Seldarine Drow. Seldarine Drow can seldom... sounds a bit silly there. Seldarine Drow can be found seeking allies from all over Faerun, aiming to settle their conflict with Lolth and each other by any means necessary. Could make a tongue twister out of the Seldarine. The seldom seen Seldarine are... something. Anyway, but that's the Drow. They look kind of cool, if a bit evil. But yeah, so next up we've got humans. Humans don't have any sub-races, which I have to say I was surprised by. But I guess it makes sort of sense. But I thought there would have been maybe different, ethnic regions and some sub-races based on those. So for instance, in Pillars of Eternity, they've got the meadow folk and the savannah folk and one more, which I can't remember. But looks like in Baldur's Gate it's just humans, which perhaps suggests that they're all over the place. And indeed, actually, this line suggests that as well. The most common face in Faerun, humans are known for their tenacity, creativity, and endless capacity for growth. 9 meters per turn movement speed. We have the Civil Militia racial feature here, which gives us weapon proficiency with spears, pikes, halberds, and glaives, and armor proficiency with light armor and shields. And human versatility, select an additional skill to be proficient in. Your carrying capacity is increased by a quarter. That seems quite useful. Then we have the Githyanki, also lacking in sub-race choices. With a ruthlessness born from mind flayer enslavement, Githyanki ride the astral sea atop red dragons, bringing their silver swords and psionic might to bear against any trace of the Illithid menace. Illithid, that reminds me of the, what were they called? What was that region in World of Warcraft in Kalimdor? Silithus, I think? What were the bugs that were, running rampant in that region called? Were they called the Silithid? I can't remember. Maybe they weren't, but it was definitely Silithus. And so, yeah, it sounds a bit familiar. But anyway, Astral Knowledge. So they gain proficiency in all skills of a chosen ability. Which, this is what these stats are called, by the way. In Baldur's Gate, they're called abilities rather than attributes. So each attribute is also linked to certain skills and has an impact on them. So I think that this means that you can get a bonus in, all the skills of a particular ability, and it will last until you next have a long rest. So there's two types of resting in Baldur's Gate, from what I know. Or from what I've read, at least. There's short rests and long rests, different to Pillars of Eternity, which only had just resting. They also have the Githyanki Psionics Mage Hand, which is similar to the Tiefling, the Mephistopheles Tiefling one. Create an invisible spectral hand that can manipulate and interact with objects. This one's based on intelligence. Was the Tiefling one also based on intelligence? No, it was based on charisma, so slightly different then. But that's, that's cool. And their racial features, 9 meters per turn movement speed, and they get Martial Prodigy. A lifetime of relentless training gives you armor proficiency with light and medium armor, as well as proficiency with the short sword, long sword, and great sword. Very cool. Back to the more standard fantasy races. We've got the dwarves here, as durable and unyielding as their homes of stone. Dwarves are some of the finest warriors, miners, and smiths of Faerun. Base racial speed of only 7.5 meters per turn. Shorter legs, so they can't move as far as the taller races. So 1.5 meter difference there. Dwarven combat training gives proficiency with battle axe, hand axe, light hammer, and warhammer. Dark vision, same as elves. They can see in the dark up to 12 meters. And Dwarven Resilience, they get advantage on saving throws against poison and have resistance to poison damage. I don't know how much resistance. I presume it's probably 50% damage resistance, the same as the Tiefling fire damage resistance racial, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Doesn't say. A few sub-races for the dwarves. We've got the Gold Dwarves. These dwarves are known for their confidence and keen intuition. The culture of the Deep Kingdom values family, ritual, and fine craftsmanship. So that increases our hit point maximum by 1. So you can see we start with 13 hit points there, whereas the other races start only with 12, or the other dwarven sub-races even. And every time we gain a level, we'll also get an extra 1 hit point. I think the maximum level is 12, so playing as a gold dwarf fighter, you can get, I would assume, up to 25 hit points without any other, just from leveling up. So that's cool. The Shield Dwarves. Great losses in ancient wars against goblins and orcs have led these dwarves to adopt a cynical mindset, but they will endure anything to restore their ancestral homelands. So they get Dwarven Armor Training, which gives proficiency with light and medium armor. Then we have the Duragar. Once enslaved by the eldritch mind flayers, Duragar adapted to freedom with harsh practicality. Their cold demeanors and gift of stealth are well known throughout the Underdark. So they have superior dark vision like the Drow, and they get Duragar Resilience, which gives advantage on saving throws against illusions and against being charmed or paralyzed, which also seems quite useful. Because I don't know if it's similar in Baldur's Gate, but in Pillars of Eternity, charmed and paralyzed are amazing effects. I assume it's similar here. Then we have the half-elves. It doesn't actually say what the other half is. I presume one half is elf and the other half is, I'm guessing, human. But it doesn't really say, but it looks... I mean, they don't look half elf and half Githyanki, so I'm assuming it's half human. Curious, ambitious, and versatile, half-elves are welcome everywhere, but struggle without a community to call their own. They can move 9 meters per turn. They get Civil Militia, which is the same as the human one, which I guess suggests that it is indeed half-human. Dark Vision like the elves, and Fey Ancestry like the elves as well. And a few sub-races here for the half-elves. A touch of the Feywild, so this is for the high half-elves, sorry. A touch of the Feywild remains in half-elves with this bloodline, and even those untrained in magic possess a hint of wild power. So they get the same high-elf cantrip. It looks like it's exactly the same. 1 to 10 damage, 1d10 fire, hurl a mode of fire based on intelligence, 18 meters, yeah, that is the same. Then the wood half-elf, like their wood elf parent, these half-elves have a quickened stride and an eye for stealth. Yet many break away from isolation in Faerun's forests to explore the rest of the realms. And yeah, they get the same movement speed bonus there. And the Drow half-elf. Most half-Drow result from liaisons between Seldarine Drow and surfacers. While half-Drow inherited a few magical gifts, they aren't usually raised in the Underdark. So they get a different... that's interesting. They get a different one to the regular Drow. Yeah, so the regular Drow, they got superior dark vision, Fey ancestry, but the half-elf Drow get this instead. They get dancing lights, an evocation cantrip, illuminated 9 meter radius for 10 turns, and it's a charisma based spell, 18 meter range, and they have to, what is concentration? Caster needs to focus on maintaining this spell. They can only cast 1 concentration spell at a time, and their concentration might be broken when they take damage. Okay. Alright. Interesting. Then we have the halflings. I was at one point considering playing a halfling. I'm not going to, but I was considering playing a halfling ranger, which would be quite similar to a character I have in Lord of the Rings Online, where I play a hobbit hunter. But I think I'll not play a halfling ranger. I've got a potential character in mind that I'm thinking of, so maybe another playthrough, but a halfling ranger would be pretty cool. You got to admit, shooting bows and arrows and stuff as a little hobbit fella. I mean, who can resist? But we won't do that, I think. Halflings. Small yet capable, halflings prefer the comforts of home and hearth, but their natural luck and dexterity makes them fine adventurers. 7.5 per turn movement speed, same as dwarves. They get the lucky racial feature. Basically, when you roll a 1 for an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw, you can re-roll the die and must use the new roll. So again, for those of you who maybe aren't familiar with CRPGs like Baldur's Gate, Pillars of Eternity, etc., or tabletop games like Dungeons and Dragons, pretty much all of the combat in these games is based on a what's called a D20 system, which means that whenever an action is performed, like trying to attack or use a spell or defend against a spell or defend against an attack, your character will roll a 20-sided dice, and that will determine whether the attack or the action is successful with critical effect, or a failure, or a critical failure. And there can be other modifiers which will independently increase or decrease the roll that you get. So you might roll a 10, but then you're, a highly dexterous character, so you'll get +2 to your roll, so it becomes a 12. But you've been poisoned recently, so you get -1, so it goes back down to 11. And then that'll be weighed against whatever the threshold is for the particular action, if it doesn't involve another character, or it'll be weighed against the dice roll that the other character that you're trying to use the action on rolls, and the higher roll usually wins, and depending on how high the winner is, it can be a critical win or a regular win, or, I don't know how the exact, stuff behind it all works, but that's the general gist or outline of these systems. So that's pretty interesting. It means whenever you roll a 1, you can re-roll the die. So, not amazing, because you've only got a, 1 in 20 chance to roll a 1. But, it can happen, so when it does happen, this is quite useful. 1's the worst roll you can get, so, yeah, not bad. And then we've also got here Brave, which gives us advantage on saving throws against being frightened. So that's, quite good. Probably not as useful as was it the Dwarven one or the Githyanki one? Whichever one was resistant against Charmed and Paralyzed. That one was pretty good. Was that, yeah, the Duergar Resilience. That one's quite good. At least on paper, I haven't put any of this into practice yet. But that's the halflings there. They've got 2 sub-races, the Lightfoot Halfling. Stealthy but social, these halflings travel all over Faerun to make names for themselves, so they get an advantage on stealth checks. And then we've got the Strongheart Halfling. Legend has it that dwarven blood gave Stronghearts their hardiness. Resistant to poison and wellsprings of endurance, these halflings easily hold their own. That gives advantage on saving throws against poison and resistance to poison damage, which is similar to the dwarven... was it the Shield Dwarves? Oh, I think it was just dwarves in general. Yes, dwarves in general. Gnomes! Small, clever, and energetic, gnomes use their long lives to explore Faerun's brightest corners and darkest depths. So, they don't look too similar to the gnomes from World of Warcraft. They've got more elvish ears here, rather than big round ears. Racial features, 7.5 meters per turn. Movement speed, they get Gnome Cunning, which gives an advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws, which is quite good. At least that seems to me quite good, because I assume that affects spells which are in those categories, or based on those attributes. So that's not bad. 3 sub-races. Rock Gnome, the most commonly seen gnomes on Faerun's surface. Rock Gnomes are named as such for their hardiness and affinity for metal. Gives them dark vision up to 12 meters, and Artificer's Law, add twice your proficiency bonus to history checks, which is pretty decent. The Forest Gnome, even smaller than their cousins, and... are they smaller? They don't look smaller, they look the same size. Anyway, even smaller than their cousins and twice as reclusive, Forest Gnomes are a rare sight in Faerun. They master magic and craftsmanship in their distant idyllic groves. So they get the Speak with Animals divination spell, gain the ability to comprehend and communicate with beasts, and that can be used until a long rest, which is a... does it say what that is? No. Oh yeah, long rest. Okay, it recharges once per long rest. It's based on intelligence. Cool. And they also get dark vision. And the Deep Gnome gets superior dark vision, up to 24 meters, not bad, and stone camouflage, which also gives an advantage on stealth checks. More guarded than their surface cousins, deep gnomes survive in the Underdark with dark vision and skillful stealth. Very good. Then we have the Dragonborn, Fusrodar and all that. A proud race that values clan and skills above all else. Once enslaved by dragons, they strive to be self-sufficient, not wanting to be beholden to anyone, not even the gods. So they get 9 movement speed per turn, and they have a bunch of sub-races here. So we've got black, blue, brass, bronze, copper, gold, green, red, silver, and white. The Black Dragonborn, despite no ancestral links to the mighty creatures, these Dragonborn share the charcoal coloration and fizzling acrid breath of black dragons. So they get Acid Breath, which is 2 to 12 acid damage, spewing forth a cone of acid. And if the target manages to throw a saving throw, they'll only take half damage. They'll still take half damage rather than escaping completely. So that's pretty cool. 5 meter range on that one in a cone, so that's actually not bad. You're guaranteed at least to do half damage, depending on your roll, of course, because that'll determine if you do, 10 out of 12 damage or 3 out of 12 damage, because it's you roll 2 dice, isn't it, to determine where you go on a 1 to 6 scale for the damage there. Subrace feature, Draconic Ancestry. The blood of ancient dragons flows through your veins. You are resistant to acid damage. Cool. Blue dragons. Despite no ancestral links to the mighty creatures, these Dragonborn share the deep sapphire scales and charged, crackling breath of blue dragons. They look really cool, actually. I like the look of the blue dragons more than the black dragons. This is Alduin, and this is like a souped-up version of Paarthurnax, I guess. Actually, I guess Paarthurnax is more like the white dragon, I suppose, but anyway. Lightning Breath, 2 to 12 lightning damage, also in a cone. And yeah, they're resistant to lightning damage. I think all of the sub-races have the same two effects there. It's just a variation of whether it's acid damage, lightning damage, or fire damage. So these Dragonborn share the burnished ochre hue and flickering fiery breath of brass dragons. 2 to 12 fire damage in a cone. Oh, not a cone, sorry, a column. Is this also a column? No, that's a cone. That's a cone. Yeah, so this one's a column, so a straight line, not a cone, unless that's a typo, but yeah, I don't know. And resistant to fire damage. They look kind of cool, I suppose. Then we have the Bronze Dragon, Dragonborn, sorry. These share the shining sepia scales and sparking breath of bronze dragons. So this is, again, lightning in a cone. Copper Dragonborn share the pink golden coloration and corrosive breath of copper dragons, also in a cone. Gold Dragonborn share the resplendent shine and roiling blazing breath of gold dragons. So this one is fire damage in a cone, not a column. Interesting. Green Dragonborn share the brilliant emerald aspect and stinking putrid breath of green dragons. Poison. Oh, this is poison, not acid. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, so these two are acid, but this green one is poison. Spew forth a cone of poison, and makes them more resistant to poison damage. Red Dragonborn share the bright scarlet likeness and roiling burning breath of red dragons. Fire damage in a cone, resistant to fire damage. Silver Dragonborn share the glinting shine and scorching cold breath of silver dragons. So they do frost damage in a cone of ice and are resistant to cold damage. And the White Dragonborn, last but not least, share the snowy aspect and frosty breath of white dragons. And again, they do frost damage in a cone of ice. Okay, so interesting. So there's 2 acid-based Dragonborn, 2 frost-based ones. There's 3 fire ones. 3? No. Yes, 3 fire ones, red, brass, and gold. Only 1 poison one, and then 2 lightning ones. Blue and bronze. Interesting. Okay, that's quite cool. And then last but not least, we've got the half-orcs. Creatures of intense emotion, half-orcs are more inclined to act than contemplate. Whether the rage burning their bodies compels them to fight, or the love filling their hearts inspires acts of incredible kindness. Again, I don't know what the other half is. I presume it's half human, half orc, or maybe it's half elf, half orc, who knows. They get a base racial speed of 9 meters per turn. They get dark vision up to 12 meters. Relentless endurance. If you reach 0 hit points, you regain 1 hit point instead of becoming downed. So downed, if you reach 0 hit points, you fall unconscious and must make death saving throws. On 3 successes, you stop bleeding out and become stable. On 3 failures, you die. If you regain any hit points, the condition is removed. If an ally helps you, you regain 1 hit point. So hit points, how much damage party members can take before being downed, and how much damage creatures and items can take before being killed or destroyed. Okay. And then they also get savage attacks. When you land a critical hit with a melee weapon attack, your damage dice are tripled instead of doubled. When you land a critical hit on an attack roll, your damage dice are doubled. You land a critical hit by rolling 20 on the 20-sided die. Oh wow, that's quite a high requirement there. A dice roll that determines whether an attack hits a target. The attack succeeds if the roll matches or exceeds the target's armor class. Armor class. The higher your armor class, the harder you are to hit. Okay, alright. Cool. Well, there's no orc race. I don't know if that's because orcs have been wiped out and only half orcs are left, or if orcs are completely savage and that's why you can't play as them, or if they're, you know, gone or disappeared in some other way. But those are all the races. So that's pretty cool, gives us a little bit of a background of what we're going to encounter in the world of Faerun. We've next got the various classes that are available. So we've got 12 classes in total, 4x3, starting with the Barbarian. The strong embrace the wild that hides inside, keen instincts, primal physicality, and most of all, an unbridled, unquenchable rage. So Barbarians start off with the Rage class action. While raging, you are stronger and you deal 2 extra damage with melee and improvised weapons, and when throwing objects. Rage ends early if you don't attack an enemy or take damage each turn, and you can't cast or concentrate on spells while raging. But it lasts 10 turns otherwise, so that's pretty good. Class features unarmored defense. While not wearing armor, you add your constitution modifier to your armor class. Wearing heavy armor impedes your rage. So, kind of encouraging you to, 1, buff up your constitution stat, and 2, not wear any armor, which is fitting for a barbarian. And barbarians have certain proficiencies. They're good with simple weapons and martial weapons. I don't know what simple weapons includes, but I presume it's most weapons. But you get to add a proficiency bonus to your attack rolls with simple weapons. So proficiency bonus is added to ability checks and saving throws against skills that you are proficient in, making them more likely to succeed. It is also added to attack rolls when attacking with weapons you're proficient in, increasing your chance to hit. Skill is a specific aspect of an ability. Every time you use the skill, you make an ability check. An ability check tests whether an action is successful based on a dice roll, your ability modifier, any bonuses, and the check's difficulty class. The ability modifier is a bonus or penalty based on an ability, which is the 6 stats here. Your physical and mental attributes affecting most of your rolls. Strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. We'll read those later, I think. But let's just read difficulty class. A number that must be matched or exceeded to succeed. Rolling a 1 always fails, and rolling a 20 always succeeds. Okay, so if we have a difficulty class of 10, we'll need to roll 10 or above to succeed. If we roll 20, it's a guaranteed success, and if we roll 1, it's a guaranteed failure, and if we roll below 10, it's also a failure. Interesting. Alright, cool. And they also have proficiencies in light armor, medium armor, and shields. So you can, if you want, ignore the class feature and wear armor anyway. But you won't be making use of the unarmored defense bonus here. Now the question is having unarmed, because it only says heavy armor impedes your rage, and you get a proficiency for medium armor. So the question is, will it be better to max your constitution and go unarmored, or max your constitution and wear medium armor anyway? I'm not sure. I don't think we'll play a barbarian though anyway, so leave that to another playthrough perhaps. Start with 14 hit points though, not bad, but that might be because we're an orc. Oh no, it's class based as well. I think barbarians typically do start with more hit points, so that's cool. Anyway, next up, bards. You know music is more than a fancy, it is power. Through study and adventure you have mastered song, speech, and the magic within. So we get some cantrips: Vicious Mockery, 1-4 psychic damage by insulting a creature, and it'll also have a disadvantage on its next attack roll, which means that it's less likely to succeed, because it'll roll 2 dice and it'll use the lower value. Ah, that's cool. So just the opposite of advantage. And Blade Ward and Abjuration cantrip take only half the damage from bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing attacks for 2 turns. I think that lasts for 2 turns and doesn't get removed when you get hit. Then they have some spells. They've got Healing Word, level 1 evocation spell, 4-7 healing. Heal a creature you can see, no effect on undead and constructs. Dissonant Whispers, level 1 enchantment spell, 3-18 psychic damage. It'll also frighten a creature and it'll be easier to hit and cannot move for 2 turns. Tasha's Hideous Laughter, level 1 enchantment, leave a creature prone with laughter without the ability to get up. It'll be prone for 10 turns. It has to have an intelligence of 5 or more, I guess, to understand the joke and find it funny. And the target can try to shake off the effect each time it takes damage. That's a good crowd control spell. You just don't hit it and then it'll stay down, presumably. Heroism, level 1 enchantment, make yourself or a target immune to frightened and gain 5 temporary hit points each turn. That's also quite good. Be good with the tank. Bardic Inspiration, inspire an ally to add a +1 d6 bonus to their next attack roll, ability check, or saving throw. And you can use that once per long rest by the looks of it. Cool, so that's the Bard. Very good. They are equipped with a little... I was going to say lute, but it actually looks more like a violin. I'm not sure if they... I mean, yeah, that's a violin to me. So, fair enough. Anyway, so that's the Bard. Violin and... what is that, a saber? Cleric. Clerics are representatives of the gods they worship, wielding potent divine magic for good or ill. So they get 3 cantrips here. Resistance. Makes the target more resistant to spell effects and conditions. Receives a +1 d4 bonus to saving throws for 10 turns. Guidance. Target gains +1 d4 bonus to ability checks for 10 turns. And Sacred Flame. 1-8 radiant damage. Engulf a target in a flame-like radiance. They get a bunch of spells too. Guiding Bolt. 4-24 radiant damage. Healing Word. Same as the Bard by the looks of it. Inflict Wounds, a necromancy spell, 3-30 necrotic damage. Putrefy a creature with the necrotic energy filling your hands. Shield of Faith, protect a creature from attacks by increasing its armor class by 2, which makes it harder to hit. And Bane, up to 3 creatures receive a -1 d4 penalty to attack rolls and saving throws for 10 turns. And they have class features, level 1 spell slots unlocked. A spell slot is used to cast spells. Each spell has a level and can only be cast with a spell slot of that level or higher. Regain spell slots by taking a long rest. Okay. And domain spells. You gain spells from your domain and they are always prepared. I don't know what always prepared means. Clerics, druids, paladins, and wizards must prepare spells before they can use them. So this one doesn't count towards your maximum prepared spells. Okay. Fair enough. They get some proficiencies in simple weapons and morning stars, so I presume morning stars then are under the category of martial weapons and not under simple weapons. And they also have proficiency in light armor, medium armor, and shields. And bards, I forgot to mention, they also have proficiency in simple weapons, and they get hand crossbows, long swords, rapiers, and short swords, which I guess again are all subcategories of martial weapons, but only light armor proficiency for the bards. Next up is druids. Druids channel the elemental forces of nature and share a deep kinship with animals. Mastery of wild shape allows them to transform into beasts from all over the realms. So they get the Shillalak transmutation cantrip. Your staff or club becomes magical, deals 4-11 bludgeoning damage, and uses your spellcasting ability for attack rolls. Your spellcasting ability is a bonus or penalty based on the ability your class uses to cast spells. The ability is indicated on your character sheet with a star. Okay, so that would be wisdom then. So the more wisdom you have, the better your Shillalak will be. And bludgeoning damage, very good. And the Thorn Whip transmutation cantrip, 1 to 6 piercing damage, and pulls the creature 3 meters closer to you. Can't be pulled if it's huge in size. And a few spells. Ice Knife, 3 to 22. It's a mix of piercing damage and cold damage. Throws a shard of ice that deals 1 to 10 piercing damage, and then it then explodes and deals 2 to 12 cold damage to anyone nearby, and leaves an ice surface. That seems like a very good spell. The ice surface will last for 2 turns, and if it misses, the shard of ice still explodes. Very good. Thunder Wave, level 1 evocation spell, 2 to 16 thunder damage. Releases a wave of thunderous force that pushes away all creatures and objects. Targets still take half damage if they save, or successfully save. Successfully throw a saving throw, whatever. Cure Wounds. This is better than the Bard and Cleric's healing spell. Does 4 to 11 healing, but you have to actually be next to it, I guess, to touch it. No effect on undead and constructs. And then they've got the same one as the Bard and the Cleric healing word. Enhanced Leap. Triple a creature's jumping distance. Cool. And they get level 1 spell slots too. Then we have Fighter. Oh, forgot to say, they are proficient in clubs, daggers, javelins, maces, quarterstaffs, scimitars, sickles, and spears, which I presume are all subcategories of simple weapons. Peasant weapons, in other words. And light armor, medium armor, and shields. The Fighter. Fighters have mastered the art of combat, wielding weapons with unmatched skill and wearing armor like a second skin. So they get the second wind class action, which draws on their stamina to heal themselves for 2 to 11 healing. And they are proficient in simple and martial weapons and all armor types as well as shields. So fighters presumably make pretty good tanks, I would guess. The Monk. Channel your cosmic enlightenment by deftly dodging and efficiently disassembling your foes through stunning strikes and a whirlwind of martial art attacks. Simple weapon proficiency and short sword proficiency, and they get the Flurry of Blows class action, which is 8 to 14 bludgeoning damage, punch twice in quick succession, and that uses up their key points, which is, I think, their class feature here. Monks get Ki, which is the magic that flows through all living beings. You can use it to exceed your body's physical capabilities. So yeah, monks, very Chinese, East Asian influence on the monk class. They will harness the Ki that flows through their own body and direct it into their physical attacks. Unarmored defense. Your reflexes are as effective as any armor. While not wearing armor, you add your wisdom modifier to your armor class. So that's quite good for monks, the wisdom stat. Dexterous attacks. Attacks with monk weapons and unarmed attacks scale with your dexterity instead of your strength if your dexterity is higher. So yeah, for a monk you really want a high dexterity, you don't really care about strength so much. Monk weapons are those with which the monk has proficiency and which do not have the two-handed weapons or heavy properties. Yeah, I mean, if you're playing a monk, like, come on man, play it unarmed anyway. That's where all the fun is. Deft Strikes. Attacks with monk weapons and unarmed attacks deal 1 to 4 bludgeoning damage unless their normal damage is higher. And bonus unarmed strike. After making an attack with a monk weapon or while unarmed, you can make another unarmed attack as a bonus action. Very cool. Paladins. Fueled by the oath you swore to uphold justice and righteousness, you are a beacon of hope in dark times. So the Paladins are proficient in all weapons and light armor, medium armor, heavy armor, and shields. So like the fighter, they make good frontline tanks. And they get 2 spells here. They get Lay on Hands, 4 healing. Use your Blessed Touch to heal a creature or cure it of all diseases and poisons. And they get Divine Sense, gain advantage on attack rolls against Celestials, Fiends, and Undead for 2 turns. Class feature is they gain the ability to channel the power contained in their Paladin Oath, which they can use to fuel certain actions, and that's replenished by a short or long rest. So twice a day you can restore 50% of your hit points, and Warlocks can restore their spell slots by taking a short rest, but otherwise you can take a long rest, which ends the day, and restores all hit points and spell slots to To take a long rest, go to a camp and use camp supplies. If you don't have enough camp supplies, your hit points and spell slots will only be restored up to half their maximum, and you won't regain any short rests. Okay. You can get camp supplies from traders or by exploring the world. Very good. So paladins have a subclass as well. I don't think any of the other classes had subclasses so far. Oh no, sorry. The clerics do. Clerics have quite a few subclasses actually. We'll come back to those. But the paladin subclasses are quite cool. We've got the Oath of the Ancients. You fight on the side of light in the cosmic struggle against darkness to preserve the sanctity of life and the beauty of nature. Healing Radiance class action, 5 healing, heal yourself and all nearby allies for 5 hit points, and regain another 5 hit points next turn. Subclass features. So for paladins, you have to maintain your oath. If you don't maintain your oath, you'll become an oath breaker, which is its own unique way to play, which I won't spoil, because I'm thinking of potentially playing a paladin, but we'll see. So, Oath of the Ancients, kindle the light. Through acts of kindness, enkindle the light of hope in the bleakest hollows of despair. Shelter the light where love blooms. Stand against the devilry that would snip its stem. Preserve your own light. Delight in culture and small joys to preserve the light in your own heart. Then we have the Oath of Devotion, which is your Knight in Shining Armor. Following the ideal of the Knight in Shining Armor, you act with honor and virtue to protect the weak and pursue the greater good. Holy Rebuke. Grant an ally a vengeful aura that deals 1 to 4 radiant damage to anyone who hits them with a melee attack. 2 turns. And then Oath of Devotion tenets. So, Oath of Devotion paladins abide by the following tenets. Courage. Stride dauntlessly into action. Compassion. Show clemency when prudent, and lend your arm to those in need. Duty. Tend your responsibilities. Obey just laws, and support those entrusted to your care. And then last but not least, the Oath of Vengeance. You have set aside even your own purity to right wrongs and deliver justice to those who have committed the most grievous sins. So we get the Inquisitor's Might. You or an ally's weapon attacks deal an additional 2 radiant damage and can daze enemies for 1 turn. And these are their tenets. Only 2 really, pretty simple. Fight the greater evil. Exerting your wisdom, identify the higher morality in any given instance and fight for it, and no mercy for the wicked. Chasten those who dole out their villainy by wiping their blight from the world forever. So that is the paladin there. Any other subclasses? No. Fighters get fighting styles, which is interesting. So you can get an archery fighting style, +2 bonus to ranged weapon attacks, or defense, which is +1 bonus to armor class while wearing armor. Dueling, when you're wielding a melee weapon that isn't a two-handed or versatile in one hand, and no weapon in the other, you deal an additional 2 damage with that weapon. So good for sword and board, or good for just being, a one-handed swordsman, I guess. Great weapon fighting, when you roll a 1 or 2 on a damage die for an attack with a two-handed melee weapon, that die is re-rolled once. That's quite good. Protection, when you have a shield, impose disadvantage on an attack against your allies when you are within 1.5 meters. You must be able to see the attacker. Not bad actually, but you'd have to keep your party pretty close to you to make use of that, which I don't know how many AoE spells there are in this game, but that could be risky if there are a lot. 2 weapon fighting, when you make an attack with your offhand weapon, you can add your ability modifier to the damage of the attack. So that's also quite good if you want to dual wield swords or something. The cleric subclasses, they've got a few here. We'll just go through them quickly. It looks like they have different proficiencies, some of them as well, which is interesting. Some of them seem to add heavy armor proficiency or martial proficiency, which is cool. We've got the life domain, which is an aspect of many good deities offering spells that protect and restore the mind, body and soul. Gives them cure wounds, so this is a better version of the base spell that base healing spell that we have, and bless, again, a better version of the initial bless spell that we have. Your devotion empowers your healing spells. When casting a healing spell, the target regains additional hit points equal to 2 plus the spell's level. Light domain. Oh, it's different. Is it different clothing as well? No, same clothing. The light domain is offered by deities of justice, majesty, and primordial flame, providing spells that dispel darkness and harm the undead. So you can infuse an object with an aura of light, or you can do 3 to 18 fire damage, or fairy fire. All targets within the light turn visible, and attack rolls against them have advantage. Oh, that's quite good. And warding flare. Shield yourself with divine light. Use your reaction to impose disadvantage on an attacker, possibly causing their attack to miss. Trickery domain. A domain shared by wicked, chaotic, and mischievous deities alike. Those who channel trickery specialize in deception and illusion magic. Blessing of the Trickster. Grant another creature advantage on stealth checks. Or you can charm someone to prevent it from attacking you, gaining advantage on charisma checks in dialogue as well. Or you can disguise yourself, magically change all aspects of your appearance. The knowledge domain, adaptable and adroit in all manner of languages and skills. Your mind is an intellectual cup brimming with exquisite knowing. So you can command a creature to flee, move closer, freeze, drop to the ground, or drop its weapon. Or put a creature into a magical slumber, and select targets up to a combined 24 hit points. So you can do a few different targets as long as their total hit points equals 24 or less. Nature domain, which gives that heavy armor proficiency. You embody the vast viridian power of the natural world, an avatar of the subtle divinity of fruitfall, avian migration, woodland silence, and the landslide's roaring fury. So it gives you the Druid Shillag cantrip. You can also get the Speak with Animals divination spell, and the Animal Friendship enchantment spell, Convince a Beast not to attack you. So presumably you could use that and then speak to it, but I don't know. Acolyte of Nature. You learn a Druid cantrip and become proficient in animal handling, nature, or survival. Cool. Tempest domain. Your faith has made you the very thunder that quakes the black firmament, the lightning coursing through the veins of a terrible storm. Subclass feature is Wrath of the Storm. Strike back at an attacking creature, potentially dealing 2 to 16 lightning damage, and on a failed saving throw you deal half of a 2 to 16 thunder damage roll. Thunder Wave. Level 1 evocation spell, 2 to 16 damage. And Fog Cloud. Conjuration spell. The cloud blinds and heavily obscures creatures within it. So being blinded is a condition which gives you a disadvantage on attack rolls, and your range of attacks and spells is reduced to 3 meters. And attacks against you have an advantage as well. And the heavily obscured, hiding in a heavily obscured area will go undetected unless they get too close to another creature. Okay. And lastly, the War domain. Fortified by holy zeal, you brandish an arsenal of sacramental savagery to use against those you deem unrighteous. So it's kind of like a paladin hybrid, I guess. Divine Favor. Your weapon attacks deal an additional 1 to 4 radiant damage, and you get an upgraded Shield of Faith, which increases armor class by 2 until long rest. And War Priest, when you make an unarmed or weapon attack, you can spend a War Priest charge to make an additional attack as a bonus action. It's kind of like a monk paladin cleric hybrid. It's quite cool. Alright. Oh, you can even choose your deity. Wow, there's a lot of deities. And are they... Oh, okay, so it's different for... Okay, so... Ah, right, you get to pick the cantrip here. So you can pick Shillag, or you can pick Poison Spray, or Produce Flame, or Thorn Whip. So that's for the nature domain ones. But the rest of them don't get that, but all of them can pick their deity. And there's a heap of them here. So let's have a read. We've got Saloon. The Lady of Silver presides over the moon, stars, and navigation. Her power over the heavens is constantly challenged by her sister Shah, who seeks to plunge the world into eternal shadow. Bahamut, the Angel of the Seven Heavens, is the dragon god of justice. His ideals of mercy and just authority keep him locked in an inexorable rivalry with his sister Tiamat. Tempest. Tempest is the lord of battles, overseeing war and its soldiers. He is the embodiment of honorable combat and condemns needless bloodlust. Tyr. The blind god rules over law and justice, encouraging valiant acts from his followers and relentlessly pursuing oathbreakers. Helm. The Watcher is an eternal sentry among the gods, representing guardians across the plains. After more than a century of fading worship, Helm's power was restored with the Second Sundering. Ilmater. The crying god protects the oppressed and persecuted. His clergy is sworn to alleviate suffering, even if that means taking on that pain personally. Mystra. As the mother of all magic, Mystra oversees the weave and spreads arcane knowledge to mortal spellcasters. Her clerics preserve ancient lore and protect bastions of magical energy. Ogma. Ogma is the god of inspiration and invention, sharing knowledge with the world through his bards and clerics. Unlike many other deities, Ogma accepts all moral alignments into his clergy. I wonder if the Ogma Infinium in the Elder Scrolls is based on the Ogma from Baldur's Gate. I presume it probably is. I think Baldur's Gate came first, right? Before the Elder Scrolls? Maybe it's the other way, but I don't think it is. I think Baldur's Gate was first. Kelemvor. Fair but distant, Kelemvor guides the dead to their appropriate plane in the afterlife. His clergy provide last rites across Faerun, but also destroy undead that have escaped Kelemvor's judgment. Moradin. The All-Hammer is a dwarven god, worshipped by smiths, artisans, and miners alike. He and Laduguer are constantly at odds. Corellin Lorethian. Creator of the elves, Corellin Lorethian oversees the elven pantheon as a whole, providing blessings to those who study art, magic, and nature. Garl Glittergold. The watchful protector is the king of gnomish gods, a deity of humor, gem-cutting, protection, and trickery. Yondala. As the mother of the halfling pantheon, Yondala is known for her kindness and open mind, encouraging her followers to protect the home, hearth, and nature. Lolth. The much-reviled matriarch of the Drow pantheon. Lolth holds sway over spiders, the Underdark, and the wicked creatures of the Demon Web pits. Her primary goal is to corrupt all Drow, transforming them into heartless cultists. Grumsh. The One Eye is the Orcs' patron deity, a god of war, conquest, and victory at all costs. He has held an ancient and immutable grudge against the Elven pantheon since Corellin Lorethian took his eye. Tiamat. Tiamat the Mini-Maud is a roiling mass of avarice and hate, currently trapped within the Nine Hells. The dragon god of greed eternally plots her escape, as do her mini-fanatics in World of Toril. In the World of Toril? Elistre, or Eilistre, I'm not too sure. Eilistre is the goddess of good-aligned drow, beauty, song, and freedom. The Dark Maiden desires balance between all races, and struggles against her mother Lolth's corrupt aims. Lathander. The Morning Lord is the god of the dawn and spring, of birth and beginnings. He is invoked to christen both new ventures and new life. His followers embrace growth and renewal, and despise the undead. Talos. This sounds familiar. Where have I heard that before? Talos represents the uncaring and destructive force of nature. His followers see life as a set of random effects in a sea of chaos, and take what they can, for who can say when Talos will strike next? Timora. Timora is the bright-faced goddess of fortune, who favors those who gamble and set out on adventure, with the utmost skill and daring. Miliki. Miliki is the goddess of forests and the creatures that live within them. She is a remote and spiritual deity, often spoken of in but the quietest of forests. Cool. All right. Well, that gives a little bit of background there. Where are we up to? I think we were up to Ranger, weren't we? Rangers are unrivaled scouts and trackers, honing a deep connection with nature in order to hunt their favored prey. So, simple and martial weapon proficiency, light armor, medium armor, and shields. They get True Strike, Divination Cantrip, gain advantage on your next attack roll, and they can summon a familiar, which is a fey spirit that takes an animal form of our choosing. So we can pick our favored enemy. Studying the tactics and abilities of certain creatures has granted you a set of abilities that is useful in a variety of situations. So, Bounty Hunter, you gain a proficiency in investigation, and creatures you hit with Ensnaring Strike have disadvantage on their saving throw. And you get Find Familiar. How's that different from... Oh, right, that's determining... Okay, so the spells you get here are determined by what you pick here. Keeper of the Veil, you specialize in hunting creatures from other planes of existence. You gain proficiency in Arcana, and can cast protection from evil and good. which is an abjuration spell protecting an ally against the attacks and powers of aberrations, celestials, elementals, fae, fiends, and undead. Yes, okay. Mage Breaker. You have a history of battling spellcasters. You gain proficiency in Arcana and can cast True Strike. Ranger Knight. You have sworn to serve a crown or nation and seek to bring its foes to ruin. You gain skill proficiency in history and armor proficiency with heavy armor. Okay. And Sanctified Stalker. You swore to hunt the enemies of a holy or druidic order. You gain proficiency in religion and can cast Sacred Flame, which is 1 to 8 radiant damage. And years of traveling in the wild have made you particularly attuned to beasts or adept at surviving in certain environments. So Beast Tamer, you have cultivated a strong bond with animals. You can cast Find Familiar without expending a spell slot. Or Urban Tracker, an expert at navigating the wild within the city. You gain proficiency in Sleight of Hand. Or Wasteland Wanderer Cold, you have spent endless days surviving desolate tundras. You gain resistance to cold damage, or the same but for fire, or the same but for poison. Okay, interesting. Next up is the Rogue. With stealth, skill, and uncanny reflexes, Rogue's versatility lets them get the upper hand in almost any situation. Proficient in simple weapons, hand crossbows, longswords, rapiers, and short swords, and light armor as well. So they do a sneak attack with their melee and ranged weapons, which deals extra damage to a foe you have an advantage against. Nice. No subclasses or anything else for rogues. Sorcerer. Sorcerers are natural spellcasters drawing on inherent magic from a gift or bloodline. So we get the Bone Chill Necromancy cantrip, 1 to 8 necrotic damage. Also prevents the target from healing until your next turn. Acid Splash Conjuration cantrip. Throw a bubble of acid that damages each creature it hits. True Strike, and infuse an object with an aura of light. And then you get some spells. Chromatic Orb, 3 to 24 thunder damage. Hurl a sphere of thunder and possibly create a surface on impact. Alternatively, choose a different type of damage. And the Magic Missile, 6 to 15 damage. Shoots 3 magical darts, each dealing 2 to 5 force damage. They always hit their target. That's cool. And they are proficient with daggers, quarterstaffs, and light crossbows. And wow, you can choose from a whole bunch of different cantrips here. So what else do we have? We've got Blade Ward, take only half the damage from bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing. We've got Mage Hand, Poison Spray, projects a puff of noxious gas. Gain advantage on charisma checks against non-hostile creatures. In higher difficulty modes, the target might accuse you of enchanting them. Oh, right, okay. Would that be on Tactician difficulty? I presume so. Dancing Lights, Firebolt, Ray of Frost, Shocking Grasp. The target cannot use reactions. I don't quite know what that means. And has advantage on creatures in metal armor. And Minor Illusion creates an illusion that compels nearby creatures to investigate. Now that could be useful for sneaking around, I guess. And then the spells, wow, a bunch of spells here. So we can deselect those ones. So Burning Hands, Charm Spell, Chromatic Orb, Color Spray, blind creatures up to a combined 33 hit points. You can disguise yourself. Gain dash immediately and as a bonus action on each of your turns until this spell ends. Okay. False Life, 7 temporary hit points. You and your nearby allies gain immunity to falling damage. Fog Cloud, Ice Knife, that's the one that explodes. Enhanced Leap, triples your jumping. Mage Armor, increases its armor class to 13 plus its dexterity modifier. Wow, Magic Missile, Ray of Sickness, poison damage, okay. When you're about to be hit by an enemy, increase your armor class by 5. You take no damage from Magic Missile. Okay. Sleep puts creatures into a magical slumber, Thunder Wave, and Witch Bolt. Link yourself to a target with a bolt of lightning. Deal an additional 1 to 12 lightning damage each turn by activating it. Right. And a few subclasses here. We've got Wild Magic. Your powers come from ancient forces of chaos. They churn within you, waiting to burst free at any time. Activate to gain advantage on your next attack roll, ability check, or saving throw. Increased chance of Wild Magic surge afterwards. Okay, Tides of Chaos. And Wild Magic stems from the forces of chaos. It churns within the sorcerers that wield it, waiting to burst free. So a little bit unpredictable. Draconic Bloodline. So that actually changes our appearance here, gives us scales. Your veins carry draconic magic, the result of a powerful dragon ancestor. Which gives us... Okay, your hit point maximum increases by 1 for each sorcerer level. That's interesting. And draconic resilience. When you aren't wearing armor, your base armor class is 13. Interesting. So you could couple that with... what was that spell that added armor? This one. You could use that mage armor as well. It's interesting. I guess you could use it with any of these. And Storm Sorcery, whether crackling with the energy of ancient deluges or pierced by gales and hurricanes, your lineage is a strange tapestry scrawled by a tempest. After you cast a level 1 spell or higher, you can fly as a bonus action until the end of your turn without receiving opportunity attacks, which is an automatic attack against an enemy moving out of reach. Okay. And the Draconic one actually lets you pick your ancestor, which just means at level 6, spells that deal the indicated type of damage will become more powerful and you become resistant to that type of damage as well. And actually it changes the look of your scales too, which is cool. That's cool attention to detail. A lot of potential in the character creation here. Warlocks. Bound by a pact to an all-powerful patron, Warlocks trade their loyalty for supernatural abilities and unique magic. Proficient in simple weapons and light armor. They unlock Warlock spell slots, which you can recharge by taking a short rest. That's good. Okay. For their cantrips, they've got a bunch here. We've got Blade Ward, Bone Chill, Eldritch Blast, Conjure 1 beam of crackling energy. Friends we've read, Mage Hand, Minor Illusion, Poison Spray, and True Strike. Okay. And 3 subclasses here. The Fiend. Warlocks in service to Fiends work towards corrupting destructive ends, intentionally or otherwise, and receive hellish blessings in turn. Armor of Agathis. Gain 5 temporary hit points and deal 5 cold damage to any creature that hits you with a melee attack. And Arms of Hadar. 2 to 12 necrotic damage and prevents them from using reactions. What are reactions? This one will tell me. Reaction is a replenishable resource, so reactions such as opportunity attacks are responses you can have to events. Reactions can trigger both during and outside of your turn. Okay, alright. So prevents opportunity attacks, basically. Dark One's Blessing. When you reduce a hostile creature to 0 hit points, this gift from your patron grants you 4 temporary hit points. The Great Old One. Warlocks bound to eldritch beings in the far realm work towards inscrutable goals, gaining strange powers over entropy and the mind. We can change our spells as well. So we get Dissonant Whispers. Yeah. Okay. I don't think actually... Do the spells? Oh, the spells are different. Aren't they? Yes. Are they? Maybe it's just... I don't know if they actually are different. Like if we get a different set or not. But anyway, subclass features. When you land a critical hit against a creature, that creature and any nearby enemies must succeed a wisdom saving throw or become frightened until the end of their next turn. Also seems quite good. And the Archfey. Graced by a lady or lord of the Fey, you are imbued with all the sumptuous and scary qualities of your patron's extraordinary realm. Fey presence. Charm or frighten nearby foes with the Feywild's beguiling, disturbing magics. For 2 turns. Sleep and Fairy Fire. Okay, so what are the actual spells? So, Armor of Agathis, Arms of Hadar, Charm, Expeditious Retreat, Fairy Fire, Hellish Rebuke, Hex, which is 1 to 6 necrotic damage, but it's conditional. I don't know what that means. Protection from good and evil, Sleep, and Witch Bolt. So is that the same? Looks like it is. Yeah, so you can change your subclass and then mix up your spells if you want. Cool. And the wizard, last one. Wizards master the arcane by specializing in individual schools of magic, combining ancient spells with modern research. No subclasses here. Proficient in daggers, quarterstaffs, and light crossbows. They get arcane recovery, replenish spell slots while out of combat, but you can't restore spell slots above 5th level. And level 1 spell slots are unlocked. So they're cantrips they can choose from, a bunch here. Acid Splash, Bone Chill, Firebolt, Poison Spray, Ray of Frost, Shock and Grasp, which is new, I think. It's a lightning damage one. Friends, Dancing Lights, Light, Mage Hand, Minor Illusion, and True Strike. We've read most of those. And the spells, they get a heap of options here. Pretty much all of the spells that we've read you can choose from. Long Strider, that's new. Increase a creature's movement speed by 3 meters. Ice Knife we've read. Grease. Cover the ground in grease, slowing creatures within and possibly making them fall prone. Interesting. Find Familiar. Protection from new. Ray of Sickness. Shield. Yeah, we've read all of those. Okay, so that's cool. Alright, so that's all the classes there. Then you can choose your background as well. We'll come back to that. So I think what we'll do now is have a look at these origin characters. Now that we've gone through the races and classes, kind of know what we're dealing with a bit. So let's have a look at the origin characters who I believe can become companions. So first up, we've got Astarion. After 200 years serving a cruel master, the vampire spawn Astarion is finally free. Free to walk in the sun, free to chase power, and free to take revenge. So he's a high elf rogue. 8 strength, 17 dexterity, 14 constitution, 13 intelligence and wisdom, 10 charisma, 3 initiative, and 10 hit points. So initiative determines who acts first in combat. The higher your initiative, the earlier you take your turn. Let's have a look at his little introduction.
Hello, darling. Don't be shy. I promise not to bite until we've been formally introduced. My name's Astarion, and I've spent a century stalking the night, hunting for pretty morsels just like you. A man called Cazador made me what I am, kept me like a pet, forced me to do his bidding. No more. The Tadpole's influence broke his dominance over me, and now I can finally pursue the one thing I've hungered for these long, dark years. Revenge. I'm going back to Baldur's Gate to track Cazador down in his lair. I'll be the last thing the bastard ever sees.
Cool. So if you choose to play as these origin characters, I guess that means that they are the ones in that initial cutscene. So I presume when he said tadpole, he meant that thing that went behind our character's eye, which I'm guessing means if we don't play as these characters, then they don't get the tadpole thing behind their eye. So that's cool. So next up we've got, what is this? Lae'zel or Lae'zel? Not quite sure how that's pronounced. But anyway, Lae'zel was raised ready for a life amongst the stars, mercilessly conquering the cosmos as a Githyanki soldier. Grounded, she must deal with a world she doesn't understand and find a way to serve her people in a plane that despises her militant kin. So she's a fighter, 17 strength, 13 dexterity, 15 constitution, 10 intelligence, 12 wisdom, and 8 charisma, 1 initiative, 12 hit points. Let's have a look at her introduction here.
Since I was born in the cold reaches of world space, I have known but one purpose: to wield a silver sword and ride a red dragon in service of my regent, the Githyanki Queen Vlaakith. My first step on this path is to slay a mind flayer and bring its head to my queen. There is no flesh I will not carve, and no barrier I will not shatter to see it done. I am the one who sunders. I am the Undying Queen's most unshakable warrior. I am Lae'zel of Kalir.
Alright, well there we go, got our answer. It's Lae'zel. Very cool. Next up is Gale. Gale's wizarding prowess once earned him the love of Mystra, the goddess of magic, until his ambition led him to the brink of catastrophe. 8 strength, 13 dexterity, 15 constitution, 17 intelligence, 10 wisdom, 12 charisma, 1 initiative, and only 8 hit points, so a bit squishy. Keep him away from the action. Let's have a look at his introduction.
Well met, stranger. You find yourself in the presence of the renowned wizarding prodigy, Gale of Waterdeep. Please, no need to be intimidated. My virtuosic talents once caught the eye of the goddess of magic herself, Mystra, who named me her chosen, and her lover. Thanks to a slight miscalculation on my part, that relationship eventually soured, as did the greatest of my powers. Now I'm merely a humble wizard on the road to redemption. Unless I can find the path to something greater.
Alright, cool. You know, Gale, for some reason, reminds me of Qui-Gon Jinn from the first, well, not historically the first, but in the universe series, chronologically the first Star Wars film, The Phantom Menace. He looks a bit like Liam Neeson in that film. Maybe his cousin, Qui-Gon Jinn's cousin, Gale Gon Jinn. I don't know. Anyway, cool. Interesting how he became Mystra's lover. I presume that means the gods are real or have some kind of presence in the universe, so that's interesting. But yeah, alright, let's listen to the next one, Shadowheart. I'm kind of enjoying the little soliloquies that each character is doing here, so we'll finish watching them. Shadowheart willingly undertook a ritual to remove her memories in order to protect the secrets of her fellow Shah worshippers. Loss and pain are sacred to her, but her faith is now being tested like never before. So, Shadowheart is a high half-elf cleric of the god Shah. As the greater deity of darkness, Shah is feared for her power over the night, secrets, and loss. She is locked in eternal conflict with her twin sister Selûne, goddess of the moon. Interesting. And we can actually, can we change? Oh, we can't change her subclass. So she's the trickery domain subclass. Can't change any of the things about, other than the cantrips and the spells, but everything else looks locked. Yeah, interesting. Okay. Background is locked as well. Can change the stats though, that's good. And the spells that are prepared, we can change those, but everything else is locked, including the appearance. Is that the same for all of them? Yeah. Background charlatan, background soldier, background sage. Okay. Interesting. So that's Shadowheart. Let's have a look at her introduction here. Her soliloquy.
My name is Shadowheart, loyal servant of Shah, goddess of darkness and loss. There is little more I can tell you than that. My Lady Shah tasked me with a mission of such secrecy that I surrendered great swathes of my memory in order to safeguard the knowledge of it. All I know is that I must bring the artifact I hold to Baldur's Gate, and that nothing can stand in my way. My goddess is watching.
It just occurred to me that Baldur's Gate must be a place. I thought that was just the name of the game or something, but no, it's must be a place in the world that people go to. It remains to be seen if it's a continent, country, or a region, or maybe there's just a chap called Baldur who has a very nice gate and people like to go and visit it for good luck. Time will tell, I guess we'll find out. Next up, Will, a human warlock. Known as the Blade of Frontiers, Will uses his magic to fell the monsters and devils menacing the Sword Coast. In a moment of desperation, he accepted an offer of greater power, forcing him into an infernal game he is struggling to play. That's his stats there, but of course I realized we can change them. 1 initiative, 10 hit points. Let's have a look at his introduction.
"7 years ago, I was exiled from Baldur's Gate, the city I call home. My name is Will, but the people of the Sword Coast call me the Blade of Frontiers, champion of the meek, defender of the innocent. The truth isn't quite so simple, but they're right about one thing. I hunt monsters, and I always catch my prey. My latest target is a devil, and I'm right on her tail. Once I'm through with her, she'll never escape the fires of the first hell."
Cool. Alright. Very good. Next up is Karlach. Karlach has escaped 10 years of service in the Hells with nothing but the axe on her back and the infernal engine blazing furiously where her heart used to be. So she's a Zariel tiefling barbarian. Let's have a look.
Ago, I was sold to the archdevil Zariel. She put a hellfire engine in my chest and made me her prize soldier. But I've escaped now. Thank you, mind flayers. And I've got a few scores to settle. If this engine doesn't burn me to ash first, I'll need people I can trust, an infernal mechanic, and a serious amount of luck. But you know what? I'm not worried. After 10 years in the Hells, I can take on anything. I've got my chance at freedom, and believe me, I'm going home.
Cool. All right. I presume those the mind flayers are those creatures that were in that cutscene that put that tadpole thing behind our eye. Because each of them have. There's been a few references to mind flayers, so I'm guessing that's what they are. Also, thanks to Will, we know that Baldur's Gate is a city, but I am still going to pretend that there's a gate there that a chap called Baldur built, and he's very proud of it. But that's Karlach. Last origin character, we've got the Dark Urge. You remember nothing but a path paved with blood. Unimaginable cruelty whispers to you from within. Can you escape it? Would you even want to? So this one, we can actually customize your appearance and class. So it starts off as a sorcerer by default, but you can change it to anything. Even the race can be changed, and the sub-race as well. Looks like the default one they've set for it is a white dragonborn, and a storm sorcery subclass with the haunted one background. So that's the only thing you can't change. You can't change the haunted one background. A wicked moment, person, or thing that cannot be slain by sword or spell haunts your mind and flickers in your peripheral vision. You carry it wherever your adventure takes you, or perhaps it carries you. Interesting. So, yeah, level 1 sorcerer, but all of that can be changed. That's quite an interesting start. I presume this one's still available as a companion in the game, and that it will appear looking like this, and not whatever you alter it to look like. But anyway, let's have a look at the introduction for the Dark Urge. There's a lot of 4chan and Reddit jokes in that name, the Dark Urge.
My rancid blood whispers to me, kill, kill, and kill again. My ruined body yearns to reap death in this world. And when this foul urge calls, it possesses my whole being. Injured, beyond repair. I know nothing besides this. I must resist the dark urge, lest it consume my mind. I must discover who I was and what happened to me before my twitching knife hand writes a tragedy in blood.
Bravo, very good. I've enjoyed those little introductions. Very Shakespearean soliloquy monologues there. Like, the voice acting is quite good, but yes, very Shakespearean style. Cool, alright, well those are all the origin characters. I don't think we'll go with any of them to play as. I'd like to have them as companions in the game. I think we will create a custom character, so let's proceed with doing that. And we won't play as a Dragonborn. I think we'll play as a human. And I'm thinking not a sorcerer. I did put a poll out, and it was a pretty even split between monk and paladin, with a slight advantage to paladins. I think more than half of you slightly had voted for paladins, whereas the rest of you voted for monks. So I would one day probably play as a monk, but I think we'll start out our first campaign as a paladin, which is cool. And before we pick our subclass and background and abilities and all that, we'll just edit our appearance. So I have a character in mind for the paladin that we're going to play. Start off as a human. Maybe the next campaign I do or something, we'll play as another race, but I think human's good. I like that we can get an additional skill to be proficient in. We get increased carrying capacity. I think that's pretty good, so we'll stick with a human there. And yeah, paladin should be a lot of fun. Fueled by the oath we swore to uphold justice and righteousness, and we're a beacon of hope in dark times. Very good. Alright, let's edit our appearance. So, in this game, you get to choose... That made me laugh when I saw it, to be honest. But you get to choose your identity. You can be male, female, or non-binary / other. And your identity is separated and distinct from your body type, so you can mix and match your identity and body type. And your identity does not determine your voice either, or the shape of your face or your body or anything. So it's all separated out. So you can be a male with a female sounding voice and a female looking body type, or you can be female with that, or you can be non-binary / other with a big strong looking male body and a female voice. It's completely sort of up to you. I have no comment on that. It's just the way the developers have done it. I'm not going to get myself into any trouble. So, we're going to play with body type 2, which is I guess you could say normal-sized male body type, or typically associated with male body types. There's also 4, which is a more muscly version of that. 3 is a taller, muscly female, and 1 is a regular sized sort of female, but still fairly muscly. Sorry, when I say female male, I mean typically associated with female and male. But we're going to go with number 2, because I think 4 is just like a massive behemoth. So we'll go with 2. We're going to identify as male. For the voice, I think we'll stick with voice 1.
What was that?
There's 8 voices in total, and they have not
What was that?
identified them or categorized them into male and female, but like when you listen to them, you will know which ones are, intended to be, or maybe not intended to be, which ones the average person would typically associate with male, and which ones the average person would typically associate with female. You will be able to tell just by listening to them, and you will notice that the odd-numbered voices are the ones typically associated with men, and the even-numbered voices are the ones typically associated with women. So, voice 1.
Let's hope the locals are friendly.
Hells. Something just woke up down here.
Voice 2.
Be wary. This place is trapped.
That's voice 3, and now voice 4.
It's opened. I wonder what's back there.
And now voice
More
5.
of those wretched things.
And 6.
There's magic keeping this chest sealed.
Where to next?
What was that? Let's hope the locals are friendly.
So you can see, even number female, odd number male. We're going to stick with 1.
Something just woke up down
So I think
here.
it sounds the most paladin appropriate. For the face, we've got a few options here. You can't actually customize the face really much at all. You just pick from these preset heads, basically. You can change the skin color, though, so, that's plenty of options there. We're going to go with head 8. We're going to change the skin color. You can go all skin colors and just go completely ham and make a human who's lime green, or, you know, that actually looked not totally weird, but, you know, dark blue or bright blue, or, you know, whatever you want to do, you can go crazy. Or you can just untick that and it'll just show you ones that are, you know, within the realm of reason for humans. We're going to go with cool tone 3, I think. 3? Are we going to go with 3? Let's see. Yeah, cool tone 3. Cool. Alright. Scarring, we're not going to choose any scars at the start. We might add some later if we die horribly or have a big boss fight or something, but for now we'll just leave no scars. Maturity, we're going to leave at 0. We could turn it up and give ourselves some, you know, creases in our face. Make us look old and haggard. Freckle quantity as well, we're going to leave at 0. But you can turn that up and then also turn up the intensity to make them more noticeable, but they tend to look a bit more like blotches of dirt. But we're just going to leave that at 0. They've also got, and I was honestly surprised when I saw this in the game, but they've got vitiligo pigmentation. I think that's how that's pronounced. It might be vitiligo, I don't know, but anyway, it's a skin-related, is it a disease? I guess it's a genetic disease, or would you call it a defect? I don't know. But anyway, you can add that or not. It's up to you. You can't customize where it, like, you can't change the location of it. You can just change the intensity. It does that automatically. But we'll just leave that at 0. And the most ridiculous thing in this game is you can change your genitals. So, without wanting to get political or anything, again, it's separated from your identity, your voice, your body type. So you can have a typically male-looking body type, and you can choose, you know, you can choose female genital parts. It's completely unnecessary in my view. I don't think it should be in the game. I think it's a silly thing to put in the game. It's also the case that it doesn't censor that area. So if I hit hide clothes here, you will see a, you know, a dick. And I could change that to a vagina if I wanted to, but like completely pointless. I don't know. It has no impact on gameplay as far as I'm aware. It shouldn't have an impact on gameplay. I don't know why the developers put that in. I think it's a bit weird and honestly a little bit creepy that they put all of that sort of thing in. So I'm not going to hide the clothes and show any of that. I'm not going to tinker with that. I'll leave it on default. I really don't care what's under our character's pants as long as he's a male character, because that's the character I want to play. And default is, at least default matches male identity correctly, which seems to suggest something interesting about what is considered quote-unquote normal in terms of standard deviation on a bell curve. But anyway, won't get into that. So that's who we're going to play so far. Body type 2, male identity, voice 1, face 8, cool tone 3 for the skin color, no scars, no maturity, or 0 maturity, 0 freckle quantity, 0 freckle intensity, 0 vitiligo pigmentation, and the default genitals, which just sounds ridiculous. Body art's up next. You can pick a number of tattoos here, and you can change their color to a whole bunch of things, and also change their intensity, so you can make them look a bit more faded, or, you know, whatever you want. And there's also some piercings which you can choose, but we're not going to have any piercings or tattoos. I think doesn't really fit the paladin I want to go for, so we're going to go back to none. And no tattoo, thank you very much. But there are a lot of different options here. If I was going to play a monk, I'd play a kind of older, you know, Chinese-looking monk, and I'd give him this tattoo with like a... I'd make him bald. I'd give him this tattoo with like a white color. It looks awesome. So maybe if we can create a character in-game, like a custom companion, maybe I'll create the monk that I was thinking of playing as. But yeah, no tattoos, no piercings. For eyes, you can actually... This was quite cool. I thought this was a cool detail. You can give yourself heterochromia, which basically means your eyes are different colors. There's no option to make one look blinded, although I guess you could give, like, your left eye... like, you could do something like this. Give your right eye grey 2, and your... Let's say... Wait, that was the right eye, sorry. You could do something like this if you wanted to, for example. So let's make brown, make it a bit more obvious. And then go back to general and give ourselves the scar. So you can make it look like you've been blinded in one eye. Yeah, that's the coolest thing I think you can do with heterochromia. Otherwise, it doesn't seem that interesting to me. But we're going to go with blue number 2 for our eye color. Makeup, we're not going to wear any makeup, but there are a bunch of different options here. Lip tint, we're just going to leave on red 1, which doesn't affect the color of your lips unless you increase the intensity or the tint or the gloss. So if we increase the gloss, it'll... you can see a very slight... Actually, no impact. I think you need to increase the intensity, and then it will have a very small impact. Might need to increase the intensity a little bit more for it to even be noticeable. Doesn't look like it's noticeable at all. Is it working at all on this character? Doesn't look like it's working at all on this character. Is that because we didn't pick any makeup? Interesting. I guess you can't tinker with the lip color. That's odd. Maybe that's a bug, or maybe that's just for males. I don't know. It looks like it's stuck with the eyeliner on there now. That's interesting. Very bizarre. Let's edit our character. Let's change our race. Go Dragonborn, for example. Now let's go back to human. You know what, let's randomize the appearance. And then... that's a ridiculous looking character. And then let's edit it again. Just pick our things again. None. And eyes will go blue. Makeup. Well, maybe that is no makeup. Oh yeah, okay, no, it is turned off. Alright, I just got... I don't know why the lip didn't really change. Very peculiar. Alright, anyway, we'll just leave that at 0. Make sure the makeup's at 0 as well. Oh, that's why, because I turned the intensity down. That's why it didn't show a difference when I switched between them. That's my bad. Alright, we'll just put that all back to default. So, where are we at now? 2, male voice, that's all correct. Body art, that's correct. Although, let's just make sure, turn that off. Okay. Yep, eyes are correct. Alright, hair. So we get a lot of different hairstyles here. We'll change our hair color. I think we're going to be blonde in this. Highlights. You can add highlights to your hair, so you get lots of customization here. And give ourselves red highlights if we want to. But we're just going to leave that off, I think. Graying as well, you can change that. Become an old man. We're going to leave that at 0 though, because we're not an old man. Facial hair, we're going to just take that off for the moment while I pick the hairstyle first. So, a bunch of different hairstyles. Unfortunately, they're not categorized in the hairstyles that would be typically associated with male and the ones that would be typically associated with female, which isn't essential, but it just means you have to scroll through a bunch of female haircuts if you want to play a man and pick a male haircut. Not a big deal. But you get a lot of options. Some pretty cool looking haircuts. The hair looks great in this game as well, actually. So lots of cool different options here. I had in mind a few different hairstyles to potentially choose from for our character here. So we've got these ones. We've got Windblown and Valiant Heart, which is probably the closest to my hairstyle in real life. Kind of halfway between these two, depending on how long I grow it out. And then we've got the, what was this one called? The Waterdavian Scholar. We've got the Wavelet. We've got the Savant. Bonbons, Highbrow Moralist. Sorcha Curls, Eerie Peak. Conqueror, and Knave Braid. So the character I'm sort of going for is a knight in shining armor, a gallant knight, a chivalrous knight. Think of the famous knights of old in medieval France, medieval Germany. That's the kind of character I'm going for. So, to that end, I think we're going to go with the Savant haircut here, which I think looks quite knightly with the blonde hair and the blue eyes there. And for the facial hair, we're going to go with the Charming Devil facial hair, although we do have a few options here, like the Jaw Clinger and Groomed Rascal. I was surprised, although there's plenty of haircut options, there aren't that many facial hair options. I should also mention, even if you're identifying as a female and using a female body type, you can still have a beard. So if you want to, you can play a bearded lady, which is interesting. But yeah, there's a decent amount of facial hair options, but not as many as I thought there would be, to be honest. I think even some of the Fallout games have more facial hair options than this. But we're going to go with Charming Devil. I think that fits our character pretty well. Who I just noticed seems to have freckles, which isn't intended. That was a bug, I guess. Just goes to show you need to tinker with your settings and make sure they're set correctly. So take his freckles off there. But yeah, that's the character we're going to go with there. You can change your hair color as well for the beard there, but we're going to leave it the same as the rest of our hair. Can't change your eyebrows, unfortunately. They're set with your face that you pick. But yeah, this is the character we're going to go for. Very good, I think. And we're going to name our character Siegfried, which I think is a cool name for a knight. I was trying to think of a good French knight name, but I couldn't really think of one that just grabbed me. You know, I was thinking Guy at one point, or Guillermo, or which is more Spanish actually, or Guillaume, which I think is the French version of William. I'm probably butchering that pronunciation. But I couldn't really think of something that grabbed me. I think Siegfried kind of suits the character we've built here, so that's what I'm going to go with. Let's go back to editing our character now. And for the subclass, we're going to go with the Oath of Devotion, which is the Knight in Shining Armor one. I'm sure you all saw that one coming. Holy Rebuke and the Oath of Devotion tenets. We have to be courageous, compassionate, and dutiful. For the background, we've got a bunch of different options here. We can be an acolyte. You have spent your life in service to a temple, learning sacred rites and providing sacrifices to the god or gods you worship. Serving the gods and discovering their sacred works will guide you to greatness. So that gives us proficiency in insight and religion, which you can see if we go to our skill proficiencies here. You'll see it inherits some proficiencies from our background, so we get additional religion and insight. I'm just going to clear my stats as well, because we'll come back to this momentarily. And likewise, I'm going to clear off all of the extra choices I get there. So that's the acolyte. The charlatan, you're an expert in manipulation, prone to exaggeration, and more than happy to profit from it. Bending the truth and turning allies against each other will lead to greater success down the road. So deception and sleight of hand proficiencies there. Criminal, you have a history of breaking the law and survive by leveraging less than legal connections. Profiting from criminal enterprise will lead to greater opportunities in the future. Gives us a proficiency in deception and stealth. Entertainer, you live to sway and subvert your audience, engaging common crowds and high society alike. Preserving art and bringing joy to the hapless and downtrodden heightens your charismatic aura. That gives us skills in acrobatics and performance. Folk hero, you're a champion of the common people, challenging tyrants and monsters to protect the helpless. Saving innocents in imminent danger will make your legend grow. Gives us animal handling and survival. Guild artisan, your skill in a particular craft has earned you a membership in a mercantile guild, offering privileges and protection while engaging in your art. Repairing and discovering rare crafts will bring new inspiration, which gives us proficiency in insight and persuasion. And each of these skills are linked to an ability, so insight is linked to wisdom, persuasion is linked to charisma. And you can see the proficiency here is giving us +1 in rolls for those particular skills. Now, if we put in some of our stats, fill them out right, and we go back to the background, you'll see that it actually is now increased. It's +3 and +4, and I was so confused because I was like, why are some when I was, first had a look at the character creation screen, I was like, why are some of these giving, +3 and +4, but others are only giving, giving +4 and +4, but yet others are only giving, well, I kind of balance my stats a lot here, but, +2 and +3. I was like, this doesn't make sense. You seem to be getting, like, uneven rewards from the background. And then I realized, no, these roll bonuses here are being impacted by your ability stats, because it's having an impact here. So if we clear it, you can see it's -1 to most of them. If we bump up strength, max that out, you can see it's now +5 to athletics, because that's based on strength. So that's the impact there. But these are all equal. I mean, they affect different skills, but they just grant proficiency in them. There's no difference between that. So yeah, that's Guild Artisan. Next up is Noble. You were raised in a family among the social elite, accustomed to power and privilege. Accumulating renown, power, and loyalty will raise your status. Outlander. You grew up in the wilds, learning to survive far from the comforts of civilization. Surviving unusual hazards of the wild will enhance your prowess and understanding. Gives us athletics and survival proficiency. Noble gives us history and persuasion. Sage. You are curious and well-read, with an unending thirst for knowledge. Learning about rare lore of the world will inspire you to put this knowledge to greater purpose. Gives arcana and history proficiency. Soldier. You are trained in battlefield tactics and combat, having served in a militia, mercenary company, or officer corps. Show smart tactics and bravery on the battlefield to enhance your prowess. Athletics and intimidation proficiency. And lastly, Urchin. After surviving a poor and bleak childhood, you know how to make the most out of very little. Using your street smarts bolsters your spirit for the journey ahead, giving proficiency in sleight of hand and stealth. So those are all the backgrounds. I think for our character, the most appropriate one is Noble. That's what we're going to go with. When I was originally devising this character, the name I was going to give him was Siegfried von Hohenzollern. Unfortunately, that's too long to put into the character name, so we're just going to go with Siegfried. But nonetheless, I am a noble and shall be treated accordingly. So accumulating renown, power, and loyalty will raise our status. But yeah, that is our background there. For our abilities, so we get to assign a +2 and a +1 bonus, and we have 27 ability points to divvy out among the various abilities here. So each point, it's costs 1 to increase, I think, up until 12. No, up until 12, and then after going from 12 to 13 is still only costs 1 ability point, but going from 13 to 14 costs 2, 14 to 15 costs 2, 15 to 16 you can't do. So that's the maximum you can go is 15, and then you can give a +2 bonus and a +1 bonus. So you can get, at most, you can get 2 abilities up to 17. Sorry, 1 ability up to 17 and 1 up to 16, but that's the most you can do. So, how to split these up for a paladin? Well, strength is really important for a paladin. It's got a star there because it's our primary ability. It influences our chance to hit and our damage output with weapon attacks or spells. For us, this only impacts weapon attacks. So this is an important one. Muscles and physical power affects your effectiveness with melee weapons, also determines how far you can jump and how much you can carry. So this is one we probably want to max out as much as we can from the start. Because, yeah, it's a good one. One thing I should note is that you can see there it's got -1 to strength checks and -1 to saving throws. That only goes to +0 when we increase from 8 to 10, and it only goes to +1 when we increase from 10 to 12. Going from 10 to 11 doesn't change it, it's still +0. And likewise, going from 12 to 13 doesn't change it, it's still +1. But going up to 14, now it's +2. So for every 2 ability points you get plus, you'll get +1 to your strength checks and saving throws. So I think we want to avoid having odd numbers on our abilities from character creation, because we don't get the benefit in the strength checks and saving throws from doing that. So we'll try to make sure these are even. So that's strength. We have dexterity. Agility, reflexes, and balance affects your effectiveness with ranged and finesse weapons, and also affects your initiative and armor class. So initiative as noted before, is how early you get to take your turn. Armor class is how hard it is to hit you. And finesse scales you with your dexterity instead of your strength if your dexterity is higher. So in other words, if you want to use finesse-only weapons, then you don't really need strength. You can just increase your dexterity instead. Constitution, stamina, and physical endurance affects your hit point maximum. Intelligence, memory, and mental power improves spellcasting for wizards. Wisdom, senses, and intuition improves spellcasting for clerics, druids, and rangers. And charisma, force of personality, improves spellcasting for bards, paladins, sorcerers, and warlocks, and also influences traders' prices. And I'm guessing that conversations will have a decent amount of charisma checks. So this one's important for paladins too. So strength and charisma are probably our top two abilities, and then constitution for for health, and intelligence, wisdom, and dexterity are probably less important. Dexterity is not bad because it'll affect our armor class, and wisdom arguably not terrible either because we get +2 from our proficiency. I don't know where that comes from, but we get +2, so we could always lean into that by increasing our wisdom, give us better saving throws against wisdom related attacks and spell checks, skill checks I should say, ability checks, whatever. So let's dole it out. Let's increase our strength. We'll increase it to 14, and then we will give a +2 bonus. Charisma, we will also increase, I think, to 13, and actually no, we'll increase to 15 and give a +1 bonus. Dexterity will increase to 10. Wisdom will increase to 10. Constitution will increase to 14, I think. I think that's good. Gives us 16 strength, which we couldn't get higher than that. I mean, we could get 17, but not worth it because it's an uneven point, so you don't get +4 to the strength check. So that maxes out our strength checks and saving throws from the start of the game. Dexterity just removes the debuff to our checks and saving throws on dexterity things. Constitution gives us a decent amount of hit points. Basically, our hit points went up from 9 to 12, which is pretty good. And then, wisdom, we now get +2 to saving throws. So just getting rid of the -1 reduction there on the wisdom checks as well. Intelligence we'll leave at 0. We don't really need intelligence. Maybe we can increase it later through gear or enchantments or something, I don't know. And then charisma we need for our spells, so we'll lean into that one, I think, and max that out. We could dump dexterity. You don't lose initiative. We're not gaining initiative either, so we could dump it and then put those in wisdom and get more saving throws on wisdom. But no, I think I'd rather keep dexterity at least at 10. Could reduce constitution, leave it at 13 and put two points in wisdom. And then maybe increase constitution later. But then I think, I don't know. I think I'd rather just put constitution at 14 now and then maybe increase wisdom later. I'd rather have more hit points. So I think we'll do that. For our skill proficiencies, we inherit history and persuasion from our background. You can see we're pretty good at persuasion due to our high charisma stat. And we get to pick, and I don't know what determines, these ones. I don't know why it's only athletics, religion, insight, medicine, and intimidation that we can select for these ones, but that's what it is. This we get, I think, from being a human. We can pick an extra skill from any of them, and maybe these ones are class-based, or race-based, or background-based, I don't know. But for the extra skill here, I think we'll go with, I think perception, based on our wisdom stats, so we're not amazing at it, but perception sounds useful to me. You observe your environment, you spot hidden details. Athletics is stay fit, perform physical stunts. We're pretty good at that already because it's based on strength. Acrobatics, keep your balance, land on your feet. We're average at that, but we don't really need it because we've got strength, hopefully, to help us with resisting being shoved. Sleight of hand, wield, nimble fingers, and steal stuff. Helps us pick locks, pockets, and disarm traps. Again, we're not going to do that. We're a paladin, we're a good guy, we're not going to steal. Stealth, stay out of sight, melt into the shadows, helps you with hiding. probably don't need that. Arcana, recognize magic and interact with enchanted items. History, remember the past of the world and its people. Not amazing for us, but you know, I wanted the persuasion background and the noble background, so for role-playing reasons that's alright, and we are concerned with the legacy of our dynasty, the von Hohenzollerns. Investigation, analyze clues and solve mysteries. I would have liked that one, but again, it scales with intelligence, and I'd rather get perception than investigation. Recognize plants and animals and hug trees. Religion, recognize deities and understand holy rites. Animal handling, influence animals and pet all of the dogs. Insight, read people and situations, detect lies. I think we will take that one. That sounds quite useful. Medicine, recognize symptoms and diagnose disease. Survival, stay alive in the wilds and track prey. Deception, lie and cheat, manipulate the truth. We won't do that, we're a paladin, we're a good guy. Intimidation, be a bully, threaten and induce fear. We're already reasonably good at that. And performance, entertain audiences and command the stage. Again, because we've got good charisma, we're quite good at all of these ones. So we could go medicine, religion or athletics. We're quite good at athletics already. We could lead into it and get +5, but I think let's go with religion. You know, we are a paladin. When I was originally devising this character, I was thinking of, you know, the Knights Templar, the Knights Hospitaller, or Hospitaller, depending on how it's pronounced. Mainly I was thinking of the Knights Templar when I was coming up with the character for Siegfried von Hohenzollern. So I think going with religion kind of fits that, even though it's an intelligence-based skill, and we're sort of dumping intelligence a bit. That's alright. Do it for the roleplay. But alright, I think that's our character there. So we are, to recap, a human paladin named, we haven't chosen our name yet, but it will be Siegfried. We are a male, body type 2. Got blonde hair here, the charming devil moustache and goatee, pale blue eyes there. 16 strength, 10 dexterity, 14 constitution, 8 intelligence, 10 wisdom, 16 charisma, 12 hit points. We start with lay on hands, divine sense and holy rebuke. We're proficient in pretty much all types of weapons, as well as spears, pikes, halberds and glaives. We've got extra proficiency, I think. Or maybe it doesn't stack, I'm not sure. That's from being a human. And light armor, medium armor, heavy armor and shields. And our skills are history, religion, insight, perception, and persuasion, 2 of which, history and persuasion, are inherited from our background as a noble. Our subclass is the Oath of Devotion. We follow the ideals of the knight in shining armor and act with honor and virtue to protect the weak and pursue the greater good. So that is our character. Let's have one last look, make sure we've got our appearance correct. Looks good to me. No errant freckles visible, so let's proceed. So we'll name our character here Siegfried. Unfortunately, von Hohenzollern is too long. We can only get to von Hohens, so we'll just leave it as Siegfried, I think. I don't know if characters need to have a last name in the character creation screen. Probably not. We'll go with that. So we have to choose a guardian, which is a character we can create. So we can pick any race. We can pick a tiefling or a dwarf, elf, halfling, half-orc. I don't really know what this guardian character, like what purpose they fulfill, but I did come up with something which could be cool. So we're going to pick a human again. No sub-race to worry about. Identity you can change again here. You can't change body type. Oh no, you can, sorry. You can change body type. It's down there though. It's not up here. Wow, it looks a bit like Geralt from The Witcher. But we're going to go with a female body type with this one. Could go with the large one, but I think we'll just go with this one. Body type 1. And we'll go with female identity.
Remarkable.
And there's only 2 voices here.
Follow your instinct.
A female voice, voice 1. And a male voice, voice 2. We'll go with the female voice.
Don't be afraid.
And there's a few different faces to choose from. Got this one. None of them are bad. I think we'll go with this one. What's that? Head number 6. For skin color, I'm thinking we'll go pallid tone Let's go Pallid Tone 3. No scars. I think we won't have any scars. Maturity will leave at 0. Freckle quantity, though, I'm going to max that out. Freckle intensity, I'm going to put up a little bit, just to about there. Vitiligo, I'm going to leave at nothing. Body art. Do I want tattoos? No, I don't think any tattoos. And no piercings. I'll leave the piercings off. So I'm going somewhere with this guy. Stick with me. For the eye color, let's go green 4, maybe green 3. I'll come back to that. Makeup, I'll leave on makeup 3 actually. I think that's alright. Put the intensity up to maximum though. And black is fine. Tints, I'll come back to. For the hair, I think we're going to go with this one, the Neverwinter Scarf. And for the hair color, we're going to change it to Ginger 3. And the highlights, don't want any highlights, we'll leave that at 0. Same with graying, no graying. And facial hair, we'll leave no facial hair, thank you very much. Alright, back to the lip tint. Just put up the intensity on the color there. Do we want glossy? Probably not. Let's leave it at maybe 30. And intensity, we'll put it 30 as well. And we'll leave it on red 2, I think looks alright. That looks okay. And the eye color, do we want it as green 3 or 4? Kind of like the look of 3 more. You know what, maybe with the makeup we'll leave that off. Looks a bit more, no, let's put it on 30. It's fine. Do you want metallic colored lipstick? I think we'll leave that at 0. Alright. That looks okay to me. Is that color decent? Yeah, sure. Alright. Leave it on red 2. Fine. Okay, so the story of this character is... This was Siegfried's flame when he was a younger knight back in the village from, you know, where he grew up. Unfortunately, she was slain in a bandit raid, and, you know, he's forever been in love with this woman. So this is who this woman is based on. I don't know what role the Guardian performs, but that's the backstory to this character. It's Siegfried's love interest. Oh well, former love interest, who is unfortunately no longer with us. So that's the character there. Alright, I think we're done. That is our first episode, our character creation video. I'm going to end the video here, and in the next episode, which will be released at the same time as this one, we will venture forth and begin our campaign. So do join me for that. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And like I said, the next episode in this campaign, where we actually begin the game, having completed character creation, will be on the channel right now, as of this moment, so you can just go ahead and watch that one right after watching this. So I hope to see you there. I hope you join me. Looking forward to jumping into Baldur's Gate and giving it a whirl, and I hope you'll all come along for the adventure. So, without further ado, I'll see you in the next episode. Take care, and have fun.